The past few weeks, we've been exploring the world of activism. Today, I want to talk about how crucial it is to root our activism in faith. But before we get there, let me talk a little bit more about my experience with Prop 8 in California, the ballot initiative that took away the freedom to marry for same-sex couples back in 2008. During the thick of it, I was on loan to the No on 8 campaign from California Faith for Equality, which meant that I was working the phone banks and conducting trainings to get out the vote, in addition to educating faith communities about the importance of the freedom to marry and asking them to do some organizing work as well. I must admit, it was a tough pill for many of the queer secular organizers to swallow. People of faith were seen as the enemy because many of them had horror stories of being kicked out and shunned by their faith communities growing up. There developed a faith phobia in the queer community, and consequently, many disavowed joining any houses of worship at all or organized religion altogether. I felt like I was caught in the middle with queer phobia from the religious community on the one side and faith phobia from the secular political world on the other. One day, a lesbian couple and their 4-year-old child came to the campaign office asking for a yard sign. They were chatting with my colleague, and the conversation started out innocuous enough. How's your day going so far? Yada, yada, yada. They mentioned they just got a marriage license and needed an officiant to solemnize it. My colleague elbowed me and she said, "Hey, I know of a minister who could do that for you." I just wanted to shush her and then decline by saying, "I'm sorry, I don't have my script with me. I need to go home, print it out, and come right back." You see, at that time, I didn't do anything extemporaneously, especially a wedding. She said, "Oh, that's okay. Just speak from the heart. What we could do is we could gather everyone up from the office and we all could serve as the witnesses to this wedding." So there I was, unscripted, just letting the spirit move. When we got to the vows, I looked around and there was not a dry eye in the room. I don't think it was because of anything I said, but rather the fact that there's this lovely couple wanting to get married before the rest of California took their right away so that they could protect their 4-year-old son. It was exactly what we were working so hard for in this campaign for the past 2 months. It made our mission come alive. After the ceremony was over, I asked them if they belonged to a faith community, and they said that they were indeed part of Soka Gakkai, which is a lay-led Buddhist sect. I think that was the turning points. That was the turning point for these secular organizers I was working with in terms of building a relationship with communities of faith. After all, one also couldn't overlook the fact that over 50% of phone banks were held in houses of worship for the No on 8 campaign, most of them Unitarian Universalists. On the anti-equality side, the evangelical Christians, Mormons, and Catholic Church also banded together, and they were busy organizing their people and raising tons of money to defeat marriage equality. Unfortunately, as history might have told us, that's what eventually prevailed, and the queer community was understandably upset and angry. Those initial moratoriums, right after the campaign and right after that election, were so difficult to attend. The young organizers, many of whom voted for the first time and were mobilized and activated for the first time, were crushed and burned out. They had nowhere else to turn, unlike the Mormons and Catholics, who kept going back to their religious community Sunday after Sunday for solace and comfort. Whether they won or lost an election is rather irrelevant. They still had their tight-knit, loving community to turn to. Out of anger and rage, some secular organizers tried to disrupt their worship services. They tried to march down the Mormon Tabernacle in LA or Saddleback Church in Orange County, California. Even though those of us on the progressive side dissuaded them from doing so, because we know how disruptive it would feel to have our services interrupted. And just for the record, some fundamentalists have done exactly that before. Thich Nhat Hanh's opening words came to mind. Activism without spirituality is often fueled by anger and despair. Spirituality without activism is often empty and disconnected from the world. The true path lies in their integration. Thich was a proponent of what he eventually called engaged Buddhism, and that, no pun intended, he tried to marry faith and activism together. I knew you'd like that one, Yvonne. I learned two major lessons from my interfaith organizing days. One is how to counter faith phobia by integrating those two worlds together. So as a way of failing forward after that devastating loss, two colleagues and I came up with a curriculum we called the Faith Partnership Project. In it, we highlighted the fact that strong and sustainable social justice movements arose from a faithful response. Many transcendentalists who were Unitarians were also abolitionists and fought the Civil War. Women's suffragists like Julia Ward Howe, who we mentioned last week, and Susan B. Anthony and Lucretia Mott were all people of faith. And the most obvious one that we all know about is the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose behind-the-scenes guy, Bayard Rustin, was also a Quaker. And these days, we have many religious leaders that we could turn to, like the Reverend Dr. William Barber III, the Reverend Raphael Warnock, and Bishop Marianne Edgar Budde, who we talked about a couple months ago, who's an Episcopal bishop who preach about compassion. And even in my writing, our MP is actually a gay United minister. The list goes on and on. These folks have figured out how to put their faith into action, and it's worth highlighting for secular organizers. I know the dominant culture here in Canada is moving further and further towards secularization. It broke my heart to hear from a young adult in our congregation talk about an encounter that they had with a classmate. While they felt accepted for their gender identity and expression, they felt like they needed to hide their Unitarian faith or the fact that they even attended church services regularly because of the negative connotations of religion and church these days, and how easily we could be lumped into the same category as those people. While we may be able to come out of the closet for one aspect of who we are sometimes forced into the closet for another part of ourselves. It's time to bust out all these closet doors and be able to live our full, authentic lives proudly and publicly. I think it's okay to be a religious progressive. It's more than okay, actually. I think that's actually a good thing that we could come out as religious progressives. The way to counter bad religion, according to my colleague, the former minister of the Metropolitan Community Church of Toronto, is not by getting rid of all religions and going full on secular. No offense to John Lennon's line in Imagine of saying, imagine no religion, right? But the way to counter it is to practice good religion. And that was the inspiration for my poem, which can be found also in the Christian Bible in James 2:14-18. The King James Version at the end says, faith without works is dead. And again, my twist is that works without faith is just as lifeless. I didn't realize that was actually not an original idea because Eugene H. Peterson interpreted it in The Message this way. He said, "Dear friends, do you think you'll get anywhere in this if you learn all the right words but never do anything? Does merely talking about faith indicate that a person really has it? For instance, you come upon an old friend dressed in rags and half starved and say, 'Good morning, friends, be filled with the Holy Spirit,' and walk off without providing so much as a coat or a cup of soup. Where does that get you? Isn't it obvious that God talk without God acts is outrageous nonsense?" I can already hear one of you agreeing by saying, "Sounds good. You take care of the faith department. I'll handle the works department." Not so fast. You can no more show me your faith. You can no more show me your works apart from your faith than I can show you my faith apart from my works. Faith and works, works and faith fit together hand in glove. End quote. And it's this hand in glove thing that protects us from experiencing burnout, which is the second lesson I learned from my Prop 8 experience. The reading from that book that I mentioned earlier that I was quoted in wasn't necessarily about my own burnout experience. After all, I had already joined a UU congregation by then, and my job itself was a faith-based organization. So I had plenty of opportunity to recharge, even though I did sink into depression a few days after the election. I was one of the lucky and fortunate ones to not let bitterness consume me or a defeat weigh me down. It's probably because, like the 19th century Unitarian minister and abolitionist Theodore Parker put it, I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eye reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I am sure it bends towards justice. Dr. King, much later on, shortened it because we UUs tend to be very wordy. So he shortened it to what most people can quote now. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. To be honest, these days, I'm not sure if I feel like or I believe that justice is necessarily inevitable. I do think it's our responsibility to keep bending that arc. My view is more in alignment with the musical Suffs, with a line in there that says, "Progress is possible, but not guaranteed." It's that possibility that makes me want to work towards it. My long haul view is to build a movement with the power of love at the center instead of the love of power. That's what sustains my work, because burnout really isn't about being tired or fed up or even depressed. It's about a lack of wholeheartedness. And what better way to recharge our hearts than to be part of this loving spiritual community? These days, there's all this talk about NAP ministries or cultivating Black joy, for example, that ensures our religious communities are taking care of one another. Pastoral care is crucial when we're nurturing activists. I have this vision for you that when you move back into 473, that it'll become like one of those electric car charging stations and one of those docks, right? That all of the folks that come in can do so and refill their spiritual energies week after week after week, so that everyone could be deployed back out into the world as an evangelist for peace and to spread joy and inspiration wherever you go throughout the rest of the week. Faith-based community organizing, putting our faith into action. These are the words that I would use to describe Unitarian Universalism to others these days. And for me, it's a surefire way to prevent us from sinking into despair and hopelessness. Faith and works, hand in glove. I'll just end with a song from Holland Near, which I bet many of you have heard of. And by the way, I had a chance to meet Holland Near at a celebration of life service I conducted in New York City last year. So that's just a little bit of hobnobbing with the celebrities, as you will, you know, and I totally had a fangirl moment, I must say. Anyway, can you pick up on the why, how, and what as I read you the lyrics? I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. There is hurting in my family. There is sorrow in my town. There is panic all across the nation. There is wailing the whole world round. May the children see more clearly. May the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though it burns our eyes. Give me a mighty oak to hold my confusion. Give me a desert to hold my fears. Give me a sunset to hold my wonder. Give me an ocean to hold my tears. For I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. Maybe so, and amen. Let us take a few deep breaths in silent reflection.